Greetings, Tezos Nation. Welcome to another edition of TezTalks Live. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons. Joining me today is François Thiré, Product Manager for Tezos X, including Tezlink at Nomadic Labs. François is joining us today to bring us up to speed on the ongoing rollout of Tezos X and how things are progressing with bringing its ambitious roadmap to completion. Hi, François. Where are you right now, and how is the weather?
Hi, Stu. Thanks for the invitation. Right now, I'm in Paris in Nomadic Labs offices, and sadly, the weather is not that great tonight. But it's okay.
Typical October, right?
Yeah, exactly.
As we always do here on TezTalks Live, can you get the ball rolling by telling us a bit about your background and how you got started on your journey into the exciting world of blockchain technology?
Sure. So, actually, I didn't start as a blockchain maximalist, I would say, but I was wrapping up with my computer science PhD. And since I started this PhD, I wasn't sure whether I would pursue in academia. I loved innovation, technology, and so I wasn't sure. And so at the end of my PhD, I actually decided not to pursue an academic career. And so I wanted to find some new challenge, some stimulating things to do. And a friend of mine was already working at Nomadic Labs. And I chatted a little bit with him, and he had fun. He was loving what he was doing. The blockchain was great, etc. I knew a little bit about blockchain, but I didn't go in depth at that time. And so I was invited to do a talk at Nomadic Labs to talk about my PhD and stuff like that. And so this is how, talking with people, I discovered the blockchain. I started to get passionate about this. And then eventually I applied as a software engineer to Nomadic Labs. I got hired, and this is how things started.
Okay. That was the next thing I was going to ask is, in your blockchain journey, how did you come into contact with Tezos? But I assume if your
Yeah,
first sort of step into the industry was with Nomadic, you were introduced to Tezos right away.
yeah, kind of. I knew Nomadic before I knew about Tezos.
Okay. And what was it about this blockchain ecosystem in particular that appealed to you and made you decide to get involved?
So I think the decentralization part and the core values of Tezos was really, um, yes, important. I didn't had any background in finance, for example, so it's not like I knew how the financial world was working and stuff like that. But I really feel that this decentralization values was really important, especially discussing with people.
Mm.
That's one thing. The second thing is about innovation. I remember at that time there were this core protocol for Tezos that is self-amending. That was something new, something that others were not doing, and I think still doesn't. And also the proof of stake. I think for me it was not conceivable to do something that would consume so much energy. I
Mm.
know that Bitcoin maximalists have argument to say that's okay. They are recycling green energy. To be honest, I'm not convinced about this argument today, but I really wanted also to make sure that I'm not making the situation worse, ecologically speaking, than it is today. And Tezos was one of the first proof of stake chain going live, and so it was also an important criteria for me. Finally, I've discovered the Nomadic Labs teams. People, they are great. They were very friendly with me. I had a lot of discussions with them. It was a very great environment to start with my adventure in blockchain.
All right. So your adventure in blockchain began with Nomadic Labs. It began with Tezos, and now you've been in this space deeply for a little while. How would you describe your journey into the Tezos ecosystem so far? Like, what has that experience been like for you?
Yeah, so it started in 2020, actually, at the beginning of the year, which was the same at the same period we had this COVID crisis, and I remember that a few months after I joined Nomadic Labs, we had this confinement. Everybody was at home, stuck and doing stuff. And for me, actually, I had well memories of that because I was discovering Tezos, and I was for me it was a playground. I
Mhm.
remember working during the evening, during the weekend, discovering this new technology. It was very fun, and I love doing that during the COVID crisis. Um, that being said, with the years, I took more responsibilities. I eventually became the technical leader for a project called the Data Availability Layer. I worked on that project for more than 2 years, overseeing the architecture, execution, and leading up to the activation and adoption by bakers until April 2025. It was a very great experience. I learned many things. It was a pleasure to work with the engineers working on DAL. Um, Quite challenging also. Many things to do, to learn. Yeah, great. But also at this time, for me, it's while I was working on that, I wanted to know more about the product. It was
Mm.
not only about I wanted to achieve a piece of technology, but I wanted to know why I was doing that, what was the value I was bringing to Tezos, etc., etc. So I was also digging these questions, and I remember at that time I had many discussions with Adrien Zera, which was the director of Nomadic Labs, where he was also leading the business development team, and we had very interesting discussions about the ecosystem of the blockchain ecosystem. So it was at that time where instead of being just focused around Tezos, I was also discovering all these new competitors, new blockchains, new layer ones, rollups, and stuff like that. And so in this journey, not only I reached the staff engineer level as a DAL technical leader, but
Mhm.
also I really started to dig the product aspect of blockchain. And thanks to the support of the top management of 3D Tech, but also Nomadic Labs, I seized this opportunity to become a product manager for Tezos X.
Okay. And that journey, as you've just mentioned, has led you to becoming the product lead for Tezos X, including Tezlink at Nomadic Labs. Um, Before we talk about your specific role, how would you describe Nomadic Labs and its place here in the Tezos ecosystem?
So Nomadic Lab started as the only R&D lab working on Tezos. Then there are since then there were different companies working also on the core protocol. Especially now we have 3D Tech. It's one of the oldest. For me, it was a great place to ramp up on Tezos technological stack. As I mentioned, we had the initial architect of the Tezos blockchain working at Nomadic Labs, so it was really interesting, but more than interesting, I think we could learn a lot by talking to them. Um, it was yes, an amazing experience for me. Um, People were I will say it again, but they were kind. It was a very
Hmm.
great environment to work there. It's still the case, but today we are not the only one. All right, today we are working with other companies. One of the main one we are working with now is 3D Tech. There's also Functories and there are others. Apologize for not mentioning all these companies. And also, it's we still have this kind of environment. Um, it's great. We have this opportunity to, for example, travel to London or vice versa to exchange. It's a bit different, but now also the scope is wider. While initially it was really about R&D, now it's more. We are also focusing on the development, the Tezos ecosystem development with the head of verticals, etc. So we have different kind of discussions, discussing with different kind of people, different kind of backgrounds, learning a lot. So yeah,
Okay.
great place to learn, to discover things, and to evolve and make sure we are building the best blockchain for the people.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot going on. So,
Yeah.
what does a product lead for Tezos X, including Tezlink at Nomadic Labs, do exactly? What does your day-to-day look like?
So it's not like there is a typical day in my work because there are many things to do, and many things are going on at the same time, and it's always about prioritization, what
Mm,
matters, etc., etc. Mostly, the task I need to do is for Tezos X particularly is to make sure people don't work in silo mode or silo mode. The reason is that at some point you have this organization, engineers are working on projects, etc. But for Tezos X, actually, it's like it's the glue. There's some kind of glue to gather all those projects into the same product. Sometimes we call it the canonical rollup. And so we need to make sure that people are aligned, make sure that we are not doing the wrong assumptions, etc., etc. So that's an important part of my role today, that makes sure that everybody understands Tezos X, what we want to do, make sure they have the right specifications of the features we want to bring with Tezos X, etc., etc. The other thing is that because the blockchain ecosystem is moving fast, we really need to look at the competition. And I think it's one part of the job of the product is really to be aware of what others are doing so that we can position better the product we are building. And this is done in parallel of everything, right? It's the kind of things we are doing. We also need to discover the value and the positioning. So discovering the value means understand better what our users need, how we can help them. For example, for Tezos X, one of the main segments of users are the builders. So we want to make sure that the product we are building with Tezos X brings value for builders and makes their life easy. Um, the Of course, to make sure that everything works, etc., we need to be clear about our roadmap, about the features we want to bring, prioritize the work, as I mentioned, what brings the most value and when to find the product market fit. And of course, make sure we are on track.
okay. And you're obviously primarily focused on Tezos X. As someone who's been central to Tezos X's rollout, can you tell us a bit about what Tezos X is, how it was conceived, and what the larger Tezos X vision is for the future of the Tezos ecosystem?
Sure. So I would say that in 2020 or 2021, there were a kind of shift about what we wanted to do for Tezos. In particular, we started to have a strong focus on scalability. And here we need to make a difference between scalability and optimization. The point was not only about optimizing the layer one, for example, to be faster or having more throughput, but enabling um, a technology called Stack that brings order of magnitude higher in terms of throughput. One of the objectives was to reach, for example, 1 million of transactions per second.
Hmm.
You need to remember that at that time, it sounded kind of crazy because there were not that kind of activity on chain. It was not clear how we could do that, especially with a layer one, etc. And so we shifted to a rollup-centric roadmap. Rollup being a technology that helps us to bring the higher throughput, and particular to have that kind of 1 million of throughput transaction per second throughput, which actually we demonstrate I think 2 years ago with a live demo showing that the smart rollup technology that we have built for Tezos enables to have that kind of throughput. Then we, in terms of UX, etc., having this rollup is not only enough to get a good UX, for example, to get a low latency. which matters. For example, if you are using a layer 1 in 2020, the time you need to wait before your transaction is validated on the blockchain could take a few minutes, right? And with the rollup technology, thanks to what we call the speculative execution enabled by a sequencer, sorry for the technical term, that this gives us the ability to lower the latency to few seconds or even less than a second. So that was really great in terms of experience. The way we do that, the term I've mentioned, smart rollup, it's not like any rollup. And I think sometimes there's a kind of confusion because the rollup term comes from the Ethereum ecosystem. And when you look at Arbitrum or Optimism, in general, there is a trade-off in terms of security, the way they implement rollups on Ethereum. They implement rollups on a smart contract. The smart contract is owned by a multisig, etc. That's the kind of things we didn't want to do for Tezos because, as I mentioned earlier, the decentralization is a core value for the Tezos blockchain. And so the smart rollup technologies that we build is totally decentralized by default. Okay, so that this means that, for example, and we can mention it afterwards, but Etherlink, which is one of the main rollup that we have live for Tezos right now, no one owns Etherlink. It's totally decentralized. And it will be the same for Tezos X. Then we have this beautiful stack. It's low latency, very high throughput, and secure. But we think it's not enough. Now, one of the core, not core, but also distinctive value we want to bring with Tezos X is interoperability and composability. Those are similar, but actually quite different. I will explain. Interoperability is the ability to be compatible with the tooling of the language you are using. So, for example, for Tezos X, one of the first things we wanted to do is to bring EVM compatibility, and actually bringing EVM compatibility for Tezos. But bringing EVM compatibility is not only about having the ability to write a Solidity program, right? It means that you need to be able to people using EVM wallet or EVM compatible wallet should be able to use their wallet on Etherlink or Tezos X. It would be the same for editors, IDE. There are plenty of products actually that build on top of EVM, and you want to be compatible with that. So this is interoperability. We want to make sure that the things we are building are interoperable with the existing tooling. I can mention Justice also, which is part of the roadmap of Tezos X. Justice will bring JavaScript compatibility on Tezos. And what we want to do is to make sure that it's not only about executing JavaScript program, but make sure that actually we are compatible with the whole JavaScript tool stack that people are using when they develop in JavaScript today, when they build websites.
Okay.
This is something where, for example, the competition, sometimes they say, oh, we are JavaScript compatible or AssemblyScript compatible, but sometimes it's only just about being compatible with the syntax. So you can write JavaScript, but then you cannot reuse the tooling, etc., which is a barrier to adopt the technology, and also a kind of frustrating because you are used to a kind of technological stack. And actually, when you are using this language in the blockchain, you cannot do as usual. So clearly, it's something we don't want to happen for Tezos X.
Yeah.
Composability. Composability, it's a bit different. It's really about, for example, if you have two different languages in Tezos X, such as EVM compatibility with Etherlink and JavaScript, we want to make sure that when you write your application using JavaScript, you can interact with Tezos X application written in EVM, using EVM or Solidity. This is exactly the kind of thing that happens on your mobile phone when you download an app. Actually, your application can talk to other applications, and you don't care whether they are written in, I don't know, JavaScript or the language they are using, right? They just talk to each other and it's okay. And that's also something we really matter for Tezos X. We want to make sure that the applications that we are building, no matter the tool stack they are using, JavaScript or EVM, they can talk to each other.
Mm.
And finally, I will finish quickly. We want it to be plug and play, so very kind of seamless UX, very easy to use. And also because we are in the layer 2, it enables to have lower fees. And so it's always a good thing for the end users.
Okay. And obviously there's a lot in there, and it's quite an ambitious sort of reimagining of the Tezos ecosystem and the way that it runs. Why was it important for the Tezos ecosystem and how it operates to be reimagined to this extent?
Yes. So as I mentioned, scalability matters. I think Arthur explained that during the Tezos Explained videos. And what we realized more recently is that latency is really important, especially for DeFi. So that's the kind of value that people are looking at the moment. The other thing is that we think that developing on blockchain generates frictions because there are, if some blockchain specificities which are not easy to grasp. And so that's the kind of thing we really want to lower with Tezos X. Make sure that developing on the blockchain, the app, etc., is easy. And And finally, the things I would like to mention is that we don't want people to think that Tezos X is something different than Tezos. No, actually, Tezos X, we want it to be such the same thing as Tezos. It's a proposed roadmap, a proposed vision for Tezos. So it's not like we have a layer 2 and a layer 1. No, the whole thing is Tezos. And so Etherlink, for example, is the EVM compatible component of Tezos.
It's still Tezos.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And
so looking at the Tezos X roadmap that was released when this was publicly announced, significant progress has been made toward sort of bringing Tezos X to life. As a Tezos X product manager, how would you describe exactly where we are right now in the journey to making Tezos X a reality?
yes, so I mentioned already we want to have multiple runtimes. We have 3 projects which are well identified. The first one is Etherlink, that probably people know already, bringing EVM compatibility to Tezos. This is the runtime which makes Tezos EVM compatible. Tezlink is a project not bringing Michelson to Tezos because we already have Michelson, but with Tezlink, we want to make sure that people that has started their journey with Tezos using Michelson, they can still use Tezos while benefiting of all the values I've mentioned previously for Tezos X, like high throughput and low latency. So Tezlink is really a kind of extension or a feature of Tezos where we bring all these advantages of using Tezos X for existing users of Tezos L1. And finally, what we have with Justice is the runtime, which is JavaScript compatible. And what we want to do is to close the gap with Web 2. As I mentioned, we have some friction when you are developing on the blockchain. And we believe that if we integrate what I would say Web 2 programming languages, such as JavaScript, which is one of the most popular one today, we hope it will help people, particular people that are aware of the blockchain, how it works and the benefits, to be onboarded easier and develop app on the blockchain. So Etherlink is here and we are making progress. We released the 5.0 update recently. We are already working on the next one. We are increasing the throughput. We plan also to reduce the latency. Tezlink will have its own testnet by the end of the year that we call AlphaNet. So there will be more about this soon. Justice is making good progress. One particular feature, but it could be a dedicated test talk for that is the Oracle feature. I think that Justice will have a really great Dev X experience. All these things are also relying on another component, the DAL that I worked for, and which is live and ready to be used by Ethylink or Tezos X. The main challenge we are working right now is the composability. We are designing the feature and we are actually working on it. And so we should have more stuff to present at the beginning of next year about that. We're also evaluating how we can get better interoperability. As I mentioned, interoperability is really to make sure that we are compatible with the existing tooling. And we want to make sure that using Tezos X is as easy as possible for people, I don't know, being all on Solana or on other chains, etc. And so that's the kind of things we are also evaluating at the product level at the moment. And yeah, one of the
Well, obviously, as I said, it's quite an ambitious reimagining of the entire ecosystem. And obviously a project like this with that level of ambition and that level of change, it is bound to evolve organically as the landscape that you're building it on changes over time. How does the Tezos X roadmap of today differ from the one we saw when this was originally announced?
I think that from the main roadmap that we publicly shown to the people, I think the core feature didn't change. But I think with time, we reinforced this roadmap and it became a bit more precise. One important feature I think that became more important than it used to be when we published this roadmap is the latency. Even though having a sub-second latency is great in terms of user experience, there are use cases, in particular for the DeFi, where we want to be way much lower. And I mean by that, like under 10 milliseconds, for example. That's the kind of objectives that we have at the moment. That's the kind of feedback we have from the DeFi people, that we need to get a lower latency. So that's the kind of things where we prioritize a bit differently the features we want to release with Tezos X. And so at the moment, we have people already working on making sure we can provide a new feature for having a latency lower than the 500 millisecond block of Etherlink.
Okay.
But the roadmap, but because the ecosystem is really vivid and there are a lot of things happening, it's true that there are things that are changing. It's mostly about priorities, but it's not. But the core is still there. I think we envisioned having 3 runtimes. We still have those 3 runtimes today.
Okay. I was just going to say, this is all great stuff so far. I'm excited to learn more, but before we dive into the nitty-gritty, are you ready for the world-famous TezTalks lightning round?
Sure.
Fabulous. Then it is lightning round time. Remember, there are no wrong answers. This is just for fun, so our viewers can get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you a night owl or an early riser?
I think a little bit of both.
Okay. So that means you don't sleep much. Exercise or naps?
Definitely exercise.
Good choice. Pizza or sushi?
Sushi.
What is your favorite country to visit for a vacation?
Lately, I went a lot to Algarve in Portugal. Great place
I love it there.
to have
It's a
your
great
vacation.
place.
Yeah.
If you were elected king of the world, what's the first thing you would do?
I don't want to be king, so I think the first thing I would like to do is turning the world into a democracy and then resign.
Okay. Name one thing you will never do again.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Nothing comes to my mind right now. Sorry.
Fair enough. What's the secret to happiness?
It's about the journey, not the destination.
Ooh, deep. Do you have any pets?
No, maybe in the future, but not right now.
All right. Finally, what is your favorite thing to do on a rainy day?
I still like to code, actually. And so I have some personal projects, and I spend a lot of time coding on my spare time. And also, I love to learn, discover new things, etc. So I watch a lot of things on YouTube, but also movies or TV shows.
Okay,
But I'm not a doom scroller. I don't. I
that's
didn't
fair.
get infected by that yet.
It always surprises me how often when I ask people what their favorite thing to do on a rainy day is, they tell me that they code. I can't imagine.
Yeah,
Those
yeah,
were excellent answers. This concludes the TezTalks lightning round. Let's get back into it. Um, now that we've talked about Tezos X and your role in helping make it a reality for the Tezos ecosystem, I was hoping we could zoom out a little bit and talk about the current state of blockchain technology and Tezos's place in the larger blockchain ecosystem in 2025. First off, how would you describe the point in time we currently occupy in the ongoing evolution of blockchain technology?
yeah. Tough question and very large. So from my perspective, I think that, and I was surprised actually that the technology when I started was misunderstood by many people actually, even technical people. I remember having people, for example, saying, but blockchain is it has to be like Bitcoin, it has to consume a lot of energy. We can't do differently. No, it's false, right? And I think those people didn't really dig about what the technology and what it was, right? But now it's less and less true. I think also it takes time to adopt new technology. Not all of them. I think, for example, generative AI with LLMs was very fast to be adopted by a wide audience. But for blockchain, it takes time. I think people were a bit reluctant to it. I think it's less and less true. I remember, for example, when there were the NFT trend back in 2021, 2022. People, I think my family or people around me didn't, but external to the blockchain, didn't really understand about NFTs. I think at that time, and even on social media, you were hearing it was like a scam, right?
Mm.
Why you should buy an NFT? And I think kind of it hurt the adoption of blockchain, because if people think it's a scam, why they should adopt this kind of technology? I think, for example, the meme coin trend also didn't help. How can you justify that kind of trend? Like, it's really weird. That being said, I think on the other front, we are making progress in terms of education. People understand better, I think, the value proposition of blockchain. But it takes time. I think it also takes time because it's not only a kind of B2C technology, but it's also a large part of the audience of people using blockchain is also B2B.
Mm.
So it may be harder for people to understand this technology, but I think, yeah, I have signals. I talk to people, and I think it's different now. I think the perception of blockchain is a bit different, but the ecosystem is moving fast. And I think if we want to have a greater adoption of this technology, we also need to educate people more
Mm.
about this, the values, how it can help, etc., etc. And I think there's a lot of things to do because at the moment it's a very technical, it's still a very technical technology, hard to understand. So yeah, there's a lot of things to do here. So I would say that's the way I see things at the moment. Yeah, but I think we are at the beginning of a really wider adoption. There are a lot of trends where we see more and more people using blockchain. So I think, yeah, it's only the beginning.
And as we move toward that wider adoption that you're describing, what do you think are the biggest hurdles that need to be overcome to help blockchain reach its promise?
Yeah. For me, there were a big misunderstanding about the technology. I think people were thinking it's only about speculating, it was only about scams, etc. And f- from if we want an adoption which is massive, it's not only about B2B and stuff like that, but we need I think there were a lack of education. I think people didn't understand the tech. the values, and I think it was for me one of the hurdle. Yeah, and it's still the case today. Like for me, it's still not clear when you think about I don't know, decentralization, or I don't know, custodial solution. It's still not clear for me today whether why there are so many people that don't pay attention to that kind of value. You know, people they can use a new blockchain product. They don't care whether what is the security behind it. They just think it's blockchain. Maybe they will make I don't know, money out of it, whatever. And for me, it's a bit of nonsense here. I think there's something to dig. I think it's for me it's again about education mostly. That people really should pay attention to that kind of things. Yeah.
Okay. And here in the Tezos ecosystem more specifically, obviously we're coming through a period of significant change with Tezos X being one of the primary drivers. What's the state of the Tezos ecosystem today as you see it?
Yeah. I think that one great thing is that Tezos, thanks, I think it's related, but it's not only because of that, but thanks to the self-amendment feature, we always had new features voted on chain and adopted by the community. I think the core has an objective to release new economic protocol every 3 months. It's a very ambitious objective, but if we look at the number of protocols we have released since, I don't know, 2021, I think we are not that bad, right, in terms of timing. And so Tezos always evolved. I mean, I think it's part of the kind of it's normal, I would say. It's even for people now, they are used to the fact that every 3 months there is a new protocol, etc. And Tezos X is not, it's a major step that we want to propose to the community, but it's still the same progress than the one we started to do with Tezos when it runs live. We are proposing new changes to the community, a better protocol, with new features, with new core proposition, new values, and in that sense, I think it didn't change, right? However, the kind of proposition that we propose to the community, because we are adopting this rollup-centric roadmap, maybe the perception from the community changed a little bit, especially because the technology, the rollup technology, is a bit different from what they were used to with the L1. But at the end of the day, really what we want is the same. Having a decentralized technology, enabling payment, enabling programmable contract, etc., thanks to the smart contract. But the way we are doing it, it's a bit different. I think that it was very important for the community to bring EVM compatibility, because I think it's a life when you are doing computer science. There are standards. They are not always the one you want, but they are the ones that people adopted. And if you don't adopt the standard, people won't consider your project. So now, for the good or for the bad, EVM is a kind of standard. I mean, if you want to drive adoption on the blockchain without EVM compatibility, it's tremendous difficult objective to do. And so I think this is where we are at the moment.
Okay.
And I think people need to understand that EVM compatibility is not about negating kind of what we did for Tezos with Michelson, etc. It's the opposite. It's really about bringing a new technology, but it's not replacing a technology. And this is why we have Tezlink. We really want to make sure that everybody benefits from this new technological stack. And then the point for us is, with what we want to propose with Tezos X, is to say you don't need to really be stuck with a kind of programming languages such as Michelson or EVM. And actually, we want to enable a whole kind of opportunities for builders, for building the apps, etc. And this is why we are also bringing new runtimes, because we think it will drive new use cases, new users, and it will only make Tezos a better protocol at the end of the day.
Okay.
So there's a lot of changes, but I think the core fundamental value of Tezos is still the same, is still here, and it's only for the best.
Okay. And you mentioned EVM in that answer as being a very EVM compatibility as being a very important priority, because as you said, it is sort of the industry standard at this point. Like that's where things are being built, that's where the people are. So we have to connect to that world in order to tap into what's going on over there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So in terms of the Tezos ecosystem itself, and once like EVM is live, we have the ability to tap into that stream now. What does that mean for the Tezos ecosystem moving forward? Now that that's there, where does that take us?
I think, for example, if someone you should invite to the test talk is David Raking, which is actually the head of DeFi. If you talk to David, it will say it's obvious what it brings in terms of DeFi for the liquidity, etc., the compatibility with other protocol. It helps a lot the ecosystem. The fact that I was mentioning earlier that we want to have composability in Tezos X, this is really important here because once Tezlink will be live in production, it will be in the same rollup than Etherlink, so it will be kind of the same chain if you want. And thanks to this composability, it means that all the work we are doing with the DeFi, for example, to bring liquidity, thanks to the EVM compatibility on Etherlink and thus Tezos X, will benefit directly to the people developing on Tezlink.
Okay.
Or using
And
Tezlink.
yeah.
So that's the kind of things that's the kind of use case we want to enable. While right now, when you are using Tezos Layer 1, it's really hard to benefit from the DeFi you have on Ethereum. So that that the kind of important things we are doing. It's not like we want to have a splitted ecosystem. We don't want to have like a Tezlink ecosystem, an Etherlink ecosystem, or Justice ecosystem. They are all a component of Tezos X and all part of Tezos. And at the end, it's all Tezos. So we want to make sure that everybody benefits from all the advantages of the other ecosystem.
Of course. And it makes a lot of sense to have it all unified in that way. So at this stage in the journey toward making that happen, what's the best way we as Tezos users can support you and your team to realize your vision for Tezos X?
So I think we need to get more feedback from the community, from the users, and maybe one of the feedback is that we need to communicate more, which is okay. But I think it would be really great to get constructive feedback. I think sharing ideas, what works, what doesn't. For example, we released recently a Tezlink article, thanks to the Tezos Commons people, in particular Cryptonio. I think I would really encourage people to read this article and get feedback on what they think about Tezlink, how they perceive Tezlink, what they like about it, what they don't like about it, what they think we should do better, and really share that kind of constructive feedback with us. We have also a Discord, and I think that we have plenty of people, in particular from the TechRel team, that are on Discord as well. So it's really a great place to share and connect. But more generally, it would be great to get a lot of feedback, what they think, and vice versa. I mean, it means also that maybe we need to communicate better, but for that we need to know what kind of things we need to communicate to them, what are their expectations, etc. So really engaging with us would be great on that side.
Awesome. And we could go on all day, but unfortunately, we've come to the end of our time here. To all our viewers, thanks for watching. If you'd like to get in touch with us, our social media contacts can be found at tezoscommons.org/TezTalks. We'd love to hear from you. Francois, thanks so much for joining us today. It's always awesome to speak to the folks helping
Thank you.
the Tezos ecosystem deliver a more cohesive and seamless experience to its builders and users. Is there anything else you wanted to make sure you mentioned before we sign off here?
I don't think so. There's nothing I can reveal about anything we want to that will be out for Tezos X, but there might be great announcements in the future. So let's keep connect, stay in touch, and yeah, stay tuned.
Absolutely. And thank you again so much for your time. I know you're very busy.
Thank you, Stu.
To everyone out there in Tezos land, thanks for joining us on TezTalks Live. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons. And our awesome guest has been Nomadic Labs' François Thiré. How's my accent there?
Perfect.
Let's go support the Tezos X vision.